to infinity and beyond.
Hey everyone, it's Roger and James here from the DisKingdom podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about Star Wars Battlefront 2's, major mess up with microtransactions, changing things around, then completely doing U-turns, the online backlash. We're going to be giving a full review of the game later this week. But really wanted to kind of jump into the sort of the issues of really kind of that came up about this game. If you're unaware, which is probably if you're not listening to the gaming community, you'll have no doubt been aware. Since this beta launched back in October, people were complaining about what was going on in the loot crates. There was progression, there was too many things locked behind the gates, and there was so much complaints. They said that they changed everything before the launch, which they kind of went in and they changed a few things. The early access came in, and very quickly over that weekend, we were both playing on EA Access on Xbox. People were going, hold on, we're really still seeing how much progression was locked behind it. You needed so many credits to unlock characters. I think it was 60,000 credits to get Darth Vader, which was going to work out. If you did not buy the loot crates, it was going to take you 40 hours of playing to unlock just Darth Vader alone. Not even Luke Skywalker, that would take another 40 hours. And the other characters that would have been required, which there was a massive backlash. They then sort of reversed that and reduced the costs of those credits by 75%, which some of them now are a lot more attainable. I mean, I was able to get Iden Verso in it because she was only like 5,000 credits, then able to unlock her pretty quick. There was also some backlash, for example, in the arcade mode, because you could only kind of play for a little bit and get some credits before they eventually put like a mobile type cooldown where you couldn't get any more that day, which a lot of people were upset about because it's like, well, we paid for it, we've put in the time in, we should get it. This is not a mobile game. We have paid, I paid £80 for this game. I brought the deluxe digital edition, so I've put some money into this, and that's been retracted. And then there was so much upheaval. There was a Reddit AMA with the most downvoted comment in history, something like 300,000 plus downvotes.
It's past, I think, 700,000 at this point. And that was actually a different thread. I think that was the thread that prompted the AMA.
Yeah, they literally kind of like, we're doing it for you. And it's like, no, you're not.
And for anyone who hasn't been on Reddit, I know 700,000 sounds like a lot because it is. The second most downvoted comment in history is like only 70 or 80,000. Yeah. So it's not even like a close battle between first and second here.
No. And it sent out ripples right through. I mean, literally every single day, every single website was doing stories about the transactions. I know devs were getting a little bit, they were getting death threats, which... Whoa, definitely gone too far for that. There's no need for, there is just, there's one thing complaining, but there's no need for that.
In fairness about the death threats, as it turns out, the guy who said he was getting death threats doesn't actually even work for EA. Right. He worked as a QA, which is a low level. Yeah. Still important to the process, but he hadn't actually been doing it for several years. So whatever he wrote should be discarded. Now, that doesn't mean that other devs didn't get death threats, because I can totally see this community doing that, but there aren't any verified ones anymore. I know
like Marvel Heroes have had the same issue, but you should definitely, it's a video game, there's no need to go that deep. But then apparently Disney Bob Iger, the CEO, was not happy with the backlash against it. They felt it was disrespecting the Star Wars brand. They've got The Last Jedi coming out. They don't want any bad publicity about this. They then contacted EA and pretty much pulled the plug on the microtransactions on the day of release. It was a really weird release because it kind of came Friday of like, the game's out. It's like, I've been playing a week. It's because EA access, early access, and then
digital deluxe.
Yeah, it definitely got to that point of Disney were not happy with this, with basically the entire gaming community. They're worried about the game not selling, and I saw so many people saying they're not going to buy the game because of what's going on. I bought the game out, and I'll be honest, in our review, I'm really enjoying the game. It is a good game. It's just that this microtransaction stuff just ruined the launch.
Oh, it absolutely did, and Disney's got to be looking at this. This should have been the video game launch of the season. You know, I mean, it's going up against Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Mario Odyssey, all these other games. But Battlefront's got the Star Wars title attached to it. It's got The Last Jedi coming out in less than a month. And this should be the game that all the kids want and all the nerds in our age range want. And, you know, to have it overshadowed by this absolutely terrible marketing idea, well, not marketing idea, this implementation that EA or DICE or Disney or whoever decided on is, wow, it's already impacting EA's shares. I wouldn't be surprised if it impacted Disney's shares as well. And honestly, it deserves to. I mean, this was really badly thought out. Yeah.
One of the few other things, I mean, Wall Street Journal was doing stories about this problem because they were worried about the profits for EA, and they were warning shareholders to that cause that to have problems. Literally, the entire thing was just messed up. It's one of those situations. Apparently, there were reports saying that Disney had put in a request for it to be dropped. Then there are other people saying, well, actually, it was Lucasfilm that asked for not just cosmetic stuff to go in there. Again, this is one of those situations where, as far as like Disney's responsibilities go, it's a little bit of a grey area because we know we've got DICE making the game, EA publishing it, and Disney. So we don't know quite where the line comes in. EA tend to get put as the sort of the empire of the video games. They're the worst people. They're only after the money. Whether or not the people at Disney, I will be honest, I do not think that often they have their finger on the pulse on video games. They do not understand it. That's why they've licensed everything out. They go to people to pay, and they go to people that know what they're doing, and that's their way of getting around the problems now. They are paying EA, or EA, you know, there's a deal where that's... So I'm not giving them a free ride on this at all, because if they put pressure on EA to give them money, then that's different. But this is a mess around for everybody.
Yeah, and this is pure speculation on my part, not backed by any specific knowledge or whatever, but we've seen their mobile games, all the Disney licensed mobile games, Marvel, Disney Magic Kingdoms, Emoji Blitz, all the Star Wars titles like Galaxy of Heroes. We've seen them become more and more aggressive with their monetization. We actually will this week be talking about Disney Magic Kingdoms. Last week we talked about Emoji Blitz. And I would not be at all surprised to find that although Disney didn't go down and say, say, do this microtransaction scheme, they've probably been putting tons of pressure on EA to make us as much money as possible or we're going to yank the license. And so the idea is probably EA's. The way they implement it is probably EA's. DICE, of course, had to do the programming side. Whether or not they were, like complicit, this was... Because normally... you've got two sides to every company. You've got the creative side, you've got the corporate side, and they're generally at war with each other. DICE would be the creative side of this argument. So hopefully they were kind of against this, but they had to because they're not the publishers. But this is one of those things where unless somebody goes back and does like a post-mortem a year or two from now and talks to everybody and gets all the bits out, we're probably never going to find out who was fully responsible for this. And I'd say all three companies share at least some of the responsibility on this one.
Yeah. I mean, apparently DICE wanted more cosmetic stuff, but Lucasfilm weren't so keen on that kind of thing. They didn't want too much... I mean, the whole thing with canon, we're going to throw that thing out of the way anyway.
Kylo Ren is on freaking Theed or whatever, canon...
Yeah, running around is grandmother's house, it's that thing of that it's irrelevant. It's just the thing is for me is this was a launch which basically got messed up by, quite frankly, in some ways greed. Also, I think a complete misunderstanding of the difference between console players and mobile players, and this thing of there's been like stories on Twitter. One of the developers sent over to me that does work for Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, saying how 98% of the population of a free-to-play gameplay do not pay, and that's the standard stuff, and the whales fund everything else. And the thing is, there's a lot of people are a bit like, and I'll be in that same boat going, yeah, that's fine, except for the fact that I paid cash for this game. I paid for this game full price, Therefore, you can't pull this mobile stuff and try and charge for the game. You can't do both. It doesn't. If Star Wars Battlefront was a free-to-play game, and I hadn't have paid the 80 quid for the deluxe edition, and then I had to do these, and it was 80 hours or 40 hours playing to get Darth Vader, everyone would have gone, okay, it's a free-to-play game. They'd have been annoyed and people go, why couldn't you just release this? But they couldn't do the way they tried to do it.
No, and to be fair, even if this was a free-to-play game, we would still consider this to be an extremely aggressive monetization scheme. This, even Galaxy of Heroes, which is probably one of the most vicious monetization schemes they've got right now, is apples compared to this. This is nothing. So even if they had given us away the core game for free, I think there would still be a massive backlash against it. To have it on top of $60 or £80 or whatever is absurd, absolutely crazy. And the thing is, you mentioned DICE said they wanted to do cosmetics. Overwatch by Blizzard has proven that people will pay a ton of, we're still talking about the 2 or 5% or whatever, but people will pay a ton of cash for purely cosmetic changes. You get the people who love their, sorry Overwatch players, I'm probably going to butcher the characters here, but Mai and Diva and Mercy and Widow, I'm sure there's more to her name, but I can't remember what it is right now. It's not Black Widow.
I've only played on the free weekends.
Yeah, Widowmaker maybe, but they have skins, and the skins come out of loot boxes, and you can either get the loot boxes from playing, or you can pay for them, and they make more than enough money off of the paid loot boxes to continue to support the game, and these loot boxes do not impact the gameplay at all, zero. But there's a second aspect to this, which I think needs to go on, is that if you're going to have loot boxes, then the free-to-play players, the guys who will never pay, still need to have a steady stream of loot boxes. They don't have to be as powerful or as, have as nice items, or maybe the chances of getting a rare are less than if someone pays for it. But having to play, 10 rounds to get a single of the lowest tier loot box is absurd. Yeah. Whether or not it's impacting gameplay at all, and in this case, of course, it is, which makes it even worse.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, when I've been playing the game, these things haven't. I'll be honest, they feel like to me, I've just kind of just gone, nah, I'm not worried about it. I'm not bothered about crafting, and I hate that they keep bringing this stuff into games because I find it extremely boring. I've got no interest in it. I don't understand it. I want to run around on a planet as Kylo Ren with his lightsaber, killing stuff. That is basically in the Star Wars game what I want to do. And all this extra stuff is just fluff. If I go into a multiplayer game, and the trouble is, this is where the trouble comes into it, the better players have got all the good toys, and I'm running in, hey, banged it.
Yeah, so it's not even just that they've got better equipment; they're more experienced in the game, or they spent a ton of money, one or the other. Yeah. But if you're playing against a player now, since you can't spend money on it, and they've got a ton of really good cards, it's because they've played a lot, which means they both have the advantage of knowing the maps really well, knowing their characters really well, and they've got better equipment. So
personally, I'm going to stick probably more to arcade, put on custom, whacking 5 minutes with Kylo Ren running around with the thing and just feeling like I'm a super-powered Jedi without dying the minute I pop my head out the thing.
I agree completely.
And I think this is just trouble of this way of trying to fund a game, and I've been saying it for a long time. Game prices need to go up. We've been paying the same for way too long. The costs have continued to rise. However many other things in the world that have managed to stay the same price for nearly 30 years, and yet we want more than we did 30 years ago. Game prices have had to go up. People complain, I'm not paying £40, it's enough. Well, it's not enough, because the games now are starting to struggle because they can't make them for the amount of money. Battlefront at a £40 game probably needs to be £60, or a $60 game needs to be $80 because the game prices, the costs have gone up. You can't, the wages, the bills, everything has gone up. And, microtransactions are a way of, they're trying to do a price rise for a sneaky back door. It's like it's go large in your McDonald's meal. It's, adding a flake on the 99. It's all about trying to upsell because they don't want to look like they put the price up. It's like on an airline, pay for your bag, pay for this, pay. Well, actually, in all honesty, just put the price up and to what it should be, and that's. But people don't like looking like the price. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, honestly, if they did it right, though, they wouldn't have to increase the price on this. If they did it Overwatch style, if they did it cosmetics only, fair prices, loot boxes dropping rapidly enough to keep free-to-play players going, I think they could get away with a continued $60 price range and have the 2% whales subsidizing the cost for the rest of us, and they could probably make a ton of money. Blizzard is showing that they can make a ton of money, and it's a high enough profile game that people would play it, and it's Star Wars. The cosmetics write themselves.
Yeah.
Clone troopers with customized armor, B1 battle droids with customized armor, special outfits for the characters. You've got A New Hope Luke Skywalker. You've got Empire Strikes Back, beginning of Empire Strikes Back, end of Empire Strikes Back. You've got Return of the Jedi. You've got Force Awakens. They write themselves, and there are more than enough fans who would just be like, yeah, I've been playing the game for 50 hours now. I can toss $5 or $6 in there. So,
do you remember when you just used to have to either earn it or go find that? That was generally...
Well, or you enter cheat codes.
Yeah, there was that kind of thing of like, no, you just had to go... If you wanted this stuff, you had to find... It was a reward for playing the game in a trick or a cheat... And this thing of like, just, fast forwarding it with a credit card, it's that part of it, the trouble is with gaming is that we're in this point where they're trying to put the price up, and they're trying to nickel and dime it, and I think, to be honest, I think they just went way too far, and they've shown now this won't be happening for another 5 years at least.
I think you underestimate how quickly the video game market can forget, but it will be a while. Absolutely. And there might even be games in development right now that we're planning to do something like this, and either they're going to change it or they won't. But even if it doesn't come back in this form, we already know the microtransactions are coming back in this game. They have said as much. Whether they're coming back in the current form or if they're going to maybe reevaluate and actually do something positive, I'm not going to hold out hope, but we'll see.
No.
But 5 years is optimistic. That we're going to see something like this, and it might even be next Christmas. It might not be EA. It might be another company that's fallen on its sword next time. But this fight is far from over, and it's going to take a different avenue. It might not even be microtransactions next time. It might be something completely different that we don't even know about yet.
I mean, I saw a few people arguing, going, "Oh, they're giving us free DLC and all the rest of it," and it's a little bit like... No, it's like, we had a season pass last year that we didn't have to pay for. So if you brought the core game, you're probably thinking, oh, this is great, I've just saved myself 40 quid. Well, the trouble is the season pass didn't work in some respects, but DLC, there will be obviously some kind of thing in that. But then you also look at it, especially with something like the story, you're sitting there going, well, actually, no, that DLC probably should have been in there originally anyway. And things like Finn and Captain Phasma and stuff. It's like, well, they should have you're just delaying it. This should have been in the game anyway. I'm really finding the concept of, it's a bit like, if I make a sandwich for someone and then go out 5 minutes later and give them a tomato and go, well, it should have been on the plate. But no, it's an extra treat. It's literally, it was part of the package when I created it. I find things like that a little bit difficult to understand.
Normally, I would agree with you on this one, but since they're holding these ones back for The Last Jedi, like the first story DLC is supposed to take place during Last Jedi, and presumably Captain Phasma and Finn will be based more on the Last Jedi versions, I'm willing to give them a pass on that one because they don't want to spoil the movie. But normally I would agree with you. Normally it's like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. They released 3 DLC characters, less than a month after the game came out. At the very least, Black Panther and Monster Hunter should have been in the game. Sigma should have been in the game as like a reward for beating it. That's the kind of thing you're talking about, and I'd be like, no, this is ridiculous. Those should be in the base game.
But then, like, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2's got one out. You've got, like, a level based on Ant-Man versus the Wasp, Infinity War and Black Panther, which aren't coming out till next year. Well, that I can go, that's fine, because it's 6-8 months away, and it is extra content. This is just a very messy thing. This is why we're going to have this discussion away from the review, because it was kind of important, we felt, to do it, but also... when we do our review, we can kind of get into I want to get more into the nitty-gritty of the game, because in fact I do think it has completely overshadowed what is essentially a great game. But we're going to love to hear your thoughts on this microtransaction problem with Star Wars Battlefront and games as a whole. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. As per usual, check us out over at DisKingdom.com and all the different social medias to keep up with the latest from us. James, where can they find you?
Find me heroiclegacy.com.
And on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us, and may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
Always.